line. So now I did think this was funny. Or not that it was funny. It did cause me to think a little bit. How crazy is it now that the Bengals wide receiver cores, they're posing the question, do the Bengals have the best wide receiver core in all of football? Took 1 year to change that to now the perception is they have the best wide receiver core in all of football. Joe Burrow going to start the season injured. He had surgery apparently just recently, so we got to talk about that. But do you think the Bengals wide receiver core of Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase, is that the best wide receiver core in all of football?
They're close. They're close. I mean, in Chase, you have a real game breaker. Higgins is a combo guy. He can do both. And Higgins and Boyd at this stage is just a possession guy, in my opinion. But I mean, for three guys like that, I like it. I think it's a good group. I think Cincinnati, I don't know if they'll go back to the Super Bowl this year, but I think they'll be a better team, if you know what I mean, because they've certainly improved their offensive line, which was woeful last year. If you can keep Burrow upright, I think you'll see bigger numbers from him. I just don't have a whole lot of faith in their head coach, to be honest with you. And like I said, 2 years ago, they were the worst team in the league as well.
Was it 2 or 3 years ago?
Maybe it's 3 years ago now.
3 years ago.
This is going to be Burrow's third year. So however you figure it out.
Okay, so 3 years ago. You're right. Tyler Boyd's a guy who's more of a possession-based wide receiver. I don't think much of T. Higgins. I don't. He drops a lot of passes. Not a guy necessarily I'm infatuated with. If we're putting, I think T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd are meh wide receivers. They're okay.
Oh, you're wrong there. You realize T. Higgins is younger than Jamar Chase. He's only 21 years old. He's been in the league 2 years already.
Hold on. So T. Higgins, how was T. Higgins younger than Jamar Chase?
He came out, he just turned 20.
Higgins, 23 years old. Jamar Chase, 22. Okay. I knew they both came out as juniors. I knew Jamar Chase came out the year after T. Higgins. Didn't add up in my head. But Jamar Chase is younger than T. Higgins. T. Higgins is still young wideout. T. Higgins took a step back last year. He had a sophomore slump, in my opinion. Look at the production. Look at the production. He dropped a lot of passes. He's not a guy I think is very reliable.
Well, I guess it doesn't matter what you think because Joe Burrow thinks he is because he gets a shit ton of targets. He doesn't drop a whole lot of balls. He's good. He's a good wide receiver. I don't know why you're dumping on him. He's not the game breaker like Chase is, but he's absolutely extremely solid number 2 on that team. He'd be the number 1 on a lot of teams.
Holy shit. See, that's just taking it a step too far. You would not feel comfortable going into a season saying T. Higgins, my number 1 wide receiver. He's a guy who's a number 2 on a really good team, a number 3 guy.
No.
Simple. Really? No?
No. Cincinnati is a really good team, and he's a number 2. Best wide receiver group in the league, right there. Best wide receiver group in the year. He's a number 2.
In Tampa, between Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, you think that T. Higgins is a number 2 wide receiver there?
Absolutely. I think Mike Evans is wildly overrated.
You're freaking nuts. You're nuts.
No,
You're nuts.
I totally disagree.
Absolutely nuts.
Totally disagree.
Good gracious.
I think and here's the thing. I think Chris Godwin is the best wide receiver in Tampa.
You think on the 49ers he's better than Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You're ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
He might even be number 1 in San Francisco. The thing that makes Brandon Ayuk,
Deebo Samuel, better than Deebo Samuel. T. Higgins, better than Deebo. You heard it here from Grumpy, the lunatic.
The thing that makes Deebo special is his ability to run the ball. And here's the thing: if they had T. Higgins in that San Francisco offense, he'd be lighting it up. You'd be talking about him in the same breath as you are Jamar Chase. And,
you are freaking.
He's good. You're underrated.
He wouldn't even be the third best wide receiver option for the 49ers. George Kittle's a better option than a guy like T. Higgins. Brandon Ayuk's a better option, and a guy like Deebo Samuel.
You know what? Here's the thing. You let me know when Brandon Ayuk puts up any numbers even close to what T. Higgins has already put up in his first 2 years in the league.
They're both in the same draft class, Brandon Ayuk and T. Higgins. You know that.
Yeah,
right?
And T. Higgins is a better player. I don't even think that's not even. Can't even mention that. How you mention them in the same breath is beyond my comprehension.
Brandon Ayuk's played with a shitty quarterback his
Oh,
entire
and now it's the
freaking career.
quarterback's fault. Okay.
Your
Well, guess
quarterback
what?
distributes the ball. You had captain game manager
Okay.
Jimmy
Who had
Garoppolo. If you had a
who
guy
had
like Joe Burrow playing there in San Francisco, T Higgins, if you flipped quarterbacks there and gave the Bengals Jimmy Garoppolo, T Higgins wouldn't even scratch 800 receiving yards a year. Brandon Ayuk playing with a guy like Joe Burrow would have over 1,000 receiving yards every freaking year. He's the king of yak. He's the king of slicing and dicing defenses in the open field.
Okay. I'm just going to, like I said, we'll just agree to disagree on that because as far as I'm concerned, T. Higgins is it's not even, Brandon Ayuk doesn't even compare to him. Sorry.
Jesus Christ. You really love T. Higgins, man.
He had almost 1,100 yards last year, 6 touchdowns, 74 catches.
I'll one-up you here, too. He wouldn't even be a number 2 wide receiver in Seattle. Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf are both better wide receivers than T. Higgins. This guy on a really good team is a number 3 wideout. On an okay team, he's a number 2 guy. He's not that good of a wideout.
What were Brandon Ayuk's numbers? Let's see what their numbers are this year. Let's go to the quarterback argument that you're having. Their numbers are going to go way down because they don't have a quarterback, right?
Who?
Lockett and Metcalf.
I don't expect them to post numbers like they did 2 years ago. Last year's numbers were not good for either of those 2 wide receivers because Russell Wilson didn't have a good year and they were scrambling around all the time. Russell Wilson, was he hurt 2 years ago?
No.
He was healthy 2 years ago. Okay, last year, did he throw his hand and he broke his finger or something like that with a throw and a follow-through?
Yeah.
Was it last year I'm thinking of?
He missed a little bit of time. Here it is, T. Higgins, 2 years in the league. And as a matter of fact, he missed 3 games last year and still had 1,100 yards.
Okay, being available is important, Grumpy.
Okay, but he missed 3 games. But he averaged so far his first 2 years 70 catches and 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns. That's pretty damn good. I'm sorry, and you're just dismissing like he's a third wide receiver.
It's 999 yards. Get it right, Grumpy.
It's 19.
Don't round it up.
Oh my God!
It is.
If you round it up, it's
99.5 yards.
He's got a 1,000-yard receiver.
He gets 110 targets.
He's good. You're underrated.
He gets 110 targets.
Okay, let's move on. So, what was the point of bringing?
You wanted to move on, then try to bring it back up again, then got squashed, and you said, "Let's move on again."
Move it on.
The reason I was bringing this up because I wanted to ask you if you thought they had the best receiver core in all of football. I don't think so, but now I know where you stand. That T. Higgins is he's Jesus Christ incarnate out there on the field.
It's not what I said, but
you think he would be a number 2 wide receiver in Tampa Bay over Mike Evans and a guy like Chris Godwin. He would be a number 2 there. You think in Seattle he would be a number 2 wide receiver. You think on so many of these really, really good teams where the wide receiver cores are really stout, he would be a number 2 wide receiver. I just don't see it.
I think he's a rock solid number 2. And on
he's number 3 on good teams.
Some of the bad teams in the league, he's a bona fide number 1.